Okay, hi there. This is some feedback on the January 2020 Component 1 mock, but if anybody's looking at it later, then this is also the June 2018 Component 1, or most of it. There's a couple of changes, because to set them up, there were things that we haven't yet covered, but I'll let you know, I'll alert you at any point where this isn't, the original 2018 paper. Okay, so this is this is going to be the multi-choice section. Again, if we just start from the beginning, so this one, if you've got your paper, obviously that helps best. But this one is, the construction of the HS2 rail link from London to the North England creates an opportunity cost in the form of. So opportunity cost is the value of the best alternative forgone. So if you build a rail link, what have you given up? And the answer is anything else that could have been produced using those resources. So it's not a fall in house prices. It's not a loss of jobs because they're not things that you could have built. Could have done with the same resources. So the only one that's actually linked to resources is B, the road infrastructure that could have been built with the same resources. So that's the right answer to that one. Question 2, actually, and what I'll do is I'll say where I'm going to be at each one, so that you can then fast forward to the ones that you've got wrong there. So question 2, evidence from the US suggests that price elasticity demand for ribeye steak is about minus 2.1. Suppose the price is 22 and sales are 2,000. The catch here, obviously, is that they want you to find the new revenue. So what we're saying is that for question 2, we know that currently the price is $22. And there are 2,000 units sold. So the original revenue, not that it matters, is $44,000, but you're not asked that. What you're asked is, if the price falls to $19.80, then what happens? So remember with these things, the distractors are there for a reason. So just because you multiply some numbers together and get an answer doesn't make it the right answer. So what we've got to do is we've got to say, well, that is a 10% fall in price, because it's a change of minus £2.20 out of an original of £22 times 100 is minus 10%. And we know that the formula for price elasticity demand is the percentage change in demand, quantity demanded, over the percentage change in price. And we know that that is minus 2.1. So therefore, minus 10%, something divided by 10% is minus 2.1. So therefore, X is plus 21%. So what we then got to do is we've got to add 21% to the original quantity. So 2,000 plus 21% is, I should have done this before. So it's 2,000.21 is 24.20, and then you've got to multiply that by the new price of $19.80. And that gives you 47,916. So it's quite a lot of work. For just one mark, it's a bit rough. But nevertheless, that's what has to be done. And that's the sort of thing that's worth practicing anyway. Because it's conceivable that sort of thing, instead of being a multiple choice question, obviously it could be something. It could be something that's a longer, short answer question. So question 3. So question 3 then is So question 3 is one that almost everybody always gets wrong. It's a slightly weird question, because it's based around an obscure branch of not obscure. It's based around a branch of economic theory that says that basically the demand for labour is based on the value that a worker adds, and the more value you add, the more the demand will be. So lots of people went, the people who got it right, I think, tended to do it by a process of elimination. Some people went for a rise in the national living wage. I think what they're thinking there is that because there's an increase in wages, that will then mean that probably potentially more people will have money and therefore demand will go up and therefore demand shifts to the right. The right answer is actually an increase in labour productivity. Now, a lot of you will be thinking, well, hang on, if labour productivity goes up, we might not need so many workers. And that's conceivable, possibly. But what we're really saying is that, because your workers are more efficient, in general terms, because labour is a more efficient factor of production, we'd rather have workers, compared with, say, machines, and that type of thing. So each worker is now adding more value, therefore effectively you can afford to pay them more money. So if you wanted to look at it, you could say, well, look, that's the original demand for labour, that's the wage that we can afford to pay, and that's the quantity of labour. If they're adding more value, we can afford to pay workers a higher wage than we did before, and then therefore demand shifts to the left, to DL2. Question, so that's the third one. The fourth one, the fourth one is the cost to the government of a guaranteed minimum price. So the way a guaranteed minimum price works is that the government sets a price floor, and then it agrees that it will buy any unsold units. The government, or some sort of other agency, will buy any unsold units. So what we're saying then is, so if we just do a standard diagram, supply and demand, there's the quantity, there's the price. Suppose we fix a guaranteed minimum price at that level. Then we say, well, demand is Q1, supply will be Q2. These are unsold units. It's excess supply. But the government will now have to buy those unsold units. So they'll have to buy each one of those units at that price. So if that was, say, 50 million, and that was 90 million, and that was $10, then the government would have to pay $10 for each of those 40 million units. The question is saying, what will make that gap effectively the biggest? What will mean the government has to pay the largest amount of money? And the answer is really, well, the answer is very simple, which is, the more, if we increase the price compared with the equilibrium, the more that demand falls, and the more that supply rises, the more the government will end up having to buy out. So it's this sort, so in other words, if you ended up with demand looking like that and supply looking like that, then the government would, demand would only be there, supply would be right out there, the government would have to buy all of those units at that price, and the cost would be huge. That's a very price elastic supply curve, that's a very price elastic demand curve, and therefore that makes E the right answer. The bigger the gap, the more the government will have to buy. Question 5 is one about perfect competition, and on this type of question, you'll be well advised to actually draw the diagram out. What it's showing you is you've got the industry diagram over here, that determines the firms, D equals MR equals AR, and what you've got is a firm that effectively is making supernormal profit, but they abnormal profit, but they haven't put on the equilibrium for you. So the first thing you've got to do is to say, right, okay, the firm produces at Q1 because that's where MC equals MR. The price is P1 and the cost is C1. So therefore, probably a bit nearer, sorry. So therefore, your abnormal profit is that level. What we know is that in the long run, new firms are going to enter this market because in perfect competition, and in monopolistic competition for that matter, there are no barriers to entry in the long run. So what's going to start to happen is industry supply is going to shift to the right until only normal profits can be made. In the long run, then, we'll end up with a situation whereby that's going to be good. No, there we go. Where demand is driven down to D2 equals MR2 equals AR2. MC equals MR is now there, and only normal profit can be made. So the firm ends up producing fewer units because of the increasing competition. In the industry, there are more firms, and overall, the new level of competition has resulted in a fall in price. So we end up with new firms enter the industry, which drives down the price and shrinks the market share of the existing firms. So that was question 5. Sorry. So question 6. Question 6 is question 6 question 6 is a tariff question, and again, you'd be well advised to draw it out, saying, suppose we remove a tariff, what's going to happen? So obviously nobody expects you to, it's just the answer that matters, but you probably want to quickly draw it out and kind of go, okay, we know that's imports, that's the domestic market share, that's total demand, and then what happens is that we remove the tariff, okay, so price falls to there, imports are, so from that level of imports originally, imports are now this level. Because the price goes down, some local firms are priced out of the market, total demand goes up. The government used to get tax revenue that much, which is now gone. So what's happened to consumer surplus? Well, what we know is that consumer surplus has gone up. Originally, consumer surplus was that level. Now it's all of that because price is lower. Fine. Domestic producer surplus, that's fallen. It used to be the whole of that, but now, because we're selling fewer units at a lower price, domestic producer surplus has gone down. And at the same time, output of domestic firms has gone down. It's fallen from Q1 to Q2. But the total quantity bought, of course, is a lower price. The total equilibrium quantity has risen from Q3 to Q4. That's a lower price, more will be bought. Okay, so again, the central point is, if there's a diagram, just draw it, just sketch it on the side. Question 7. Question 7 is a logic question. It's just saying there's an increase in consumption. How is that going to affect the key policy objectives? Unemployment, more aggregate demand, unemployment's going to go down. More consumption, more aggregate demand, we would expect probably to see inflation go up, other things being equal. The next one is the current account, which is to do with imports and exports. Rising consumption means we're all buying more stuff. It's highly likely that imports are going to rise, therefore the current account is going to worsen. And finally, the budget balance, which is government spending and tax. We know that if consumption is rising and the economy is expanding, then there'll be more VAT paid, more income tax and so on. There'll be a rise in tax, and also falling unemployment would probably reduce the government spending, and therefore the budget balance should improve. And that makes the right answer for that one D. That was a replacement question from the original 2018 paper, and didn't have that. I had something else on that we haven't covered yet. There are 2 multi-choices. Okay, 8. 8 is a fairly straightforward mathematical question if you're any good at maths. You've got to know, so you're given marginal cost, and what you're asked is what's the relationship between that and question 8, and total variable cost. And what we know is if we take the marginal cost of the first unit and we add it to the marginal cost of the second unit and the marginal cost of the third unit, suppose that's 10, that's 8, that's say 12, we add that up, that gives us 30 quid. That's £30 of extra costs. So that is the total variable cost of making 3 units. That's what it is. So total variable cost is just all the marginal costs added up. So our marginal cost goes, let's suppose that's £10, or dollars, and it's easy to write. And that's say $7. And the third one is say $5. And the fourth one is say $4. What's happening is that total variable cost is going up 10, 17, 22, 26. But it's going up more slowly. Whereas here it's then going up by 5, up by another 7, up by another 9, up by another 12, and so on. It's going up faster and faster. And the way we show that, obviously, if you make no units, you've got no variable costs. To start with, it goes up quickly, a bit less quickly, a bit less quickly, and a bit less quickly, and a bit less quickly. And then it starts going up faster and faster and faster. So you'll end up with something that looks like that, which gives you the right answer of A. Question 9 is a simple, it's a calculation question. It's just a trap, really. It's a percentage change trap. So if you look at it, then what you've got is it's just asking the percentage change over the period, and it goes from, which side am I? 2,000 here, to 7,000 here. So what percentage increase is that? What lots of people are doing is just going, it's going up by 3.5 times. That's 350%. Well, it isn't. Because if something doubles, that's 100%. If it triples, it's 200%. And the way to do it is just do it properly. I'm just going to go, okay, the change is, it's 7,000 minus 2,000 over the original of 2,000. That's 5,000 over 2,000 times 100% times 100%. Therefore, that's 250%. So not 300%. So that was question 9. Question 10 question 10 is a PPF question. Most people tend to get this one right, but You're given a PPF, and then you're given some information, and you're told that the Indonesian government has successfully targeted poorly educated farmers. This axis is agriculture, and this is other goods. So firstly, we know that we're training farmers, so agriculture is going to go up. But then you're secondly told that population is rising. So an increase in population, other things being equal, would affect the two equally. But on top of that, we've got training and education in agriculture. So what we'd expect to see is a shift in the PPF with some effect on other goods from the population rise and a big effect on agriculture. So that was question 10, sorry. So therefore, the right answer to that one is D. 11. 11 again causes problems. What you got is you've got this total cost schedule, and you're asked to work out the average variable cost. And as you can see, what this person has done is they've worked out the total variable cost, because they've said, well, 5 units. They've said the average variable cost of 5 units. And what this person's done is they've gone, well, for 5 units, this is question 11. For 5 units, it's £165. For 0 units, costs are £100. So 0 units are the fixed cost. Therefore, my variable cost is £65, which is true, but that's total variable cost. If you then divide by 5, that gives you £13 per unit. Question 12. Question 12 is QE. If you know how QE works, then you get it right. Otherwise you're toast. So QE is an asset purchase scheme. So what happens is that the Bank of England, what it does is it buys bonds from financial markets. Doesn't buy them from the government, it buys second-hand bonds from financial markets. So there are a variety of effects that could have. But the most obvious one is the immediate effect is there's an increase in the demand for bonds, and therefore the price of bonds goes up. And that's it. So that's E. And 13, 13 is a Phillips curve question. It's quite a nasty one. Basically what happens in the question is that you've got a variety of Phillips curves, but all that's really relevant is you've got the NERU there, you've got a lower level of unemployment there, U1, you've got a point Y and a point Z, and what it's saying is that the economy returns to Z. So why is it? And the answer is, the economy is simply self-stabilizing. On a given Phillips curve, you have a given amount of inflationary expectations. So inflationary expectations are fixed. All that's happened is that the economy has returned to the NERU with the same level of inflation expectations. 14 is a more interesting question. 14 is, again, asking you about variable costs. And what we know is that variable costs, they rise in total as output rises. But therefore they fall in total as output falls. And what you're told here is that output over 3 months, it goes 500, then 450, then 400. So what you're looking for is a cost, that falls continuously, over that period. And clearly the right one is wood. It falls from 250 to 225 to 200. Some of the others, insurance, it falls but then stays constant and so on. So we can infer from that, that the one that varies as output varies is wood. Okay, 15 is a comparative advantage question. So 15, what you've got is two economies which we'll simply call C and S. You've got two goods, X and Y. And Calinia can produce either 200, with a worker can produce either 200X or 160Y, whereas Stefania can produce 100X, or 50Y. The way I always do it is turn it the easy way around. So here 1Y costs 2X, whereas for them 1Y costs 200 over 160, which is 1.25x. Come back. So C has comparative advantage. So this economy, Calinia, has a comparative advantage in X. Y. For every Y, they only have to give up 1.125X, whereas the other economy, Stephania, has to give up 2X. So therefore, what we know is that Calinia has comparative advantage in Y, Stephania has comparative advantage in X. We also know that with a given resource, Calinia is absolutely more efficient in X and absolutely more efficient in Y. So we also know that Calinia has absolute advantage in X and Y because with a worker it can produce more of them. And that gives you D. Trade is possible because the opportunity cost ratios are different. Calinia has comparative advantage in Y and Stephania has comparative advantage in X. And on those I just work it out, and then see which one fits. Okay, 16. It's 16 is perfect competition, and what you're told is that price is 20 quid, variable cost per unit is 18 quid, and really that's all you need to know. You're also told that fixed cost per unit is 5 quid, but the point is that because price is above variable cost, they're making what's called a contribution of £2 per unit. This firm should stay open in the short run, because if it closes, it would then lose that contribution of £2 per unit, and it would still have to pay its fixed cost anyway. So if it's open, at the moment they're making 10,000 units. If they stay open, then their revenue would be 200,000, their variable costs would be 180,000, and their fixed costs would be 50,000. And therefore they're making a loss of 30,000 quid. Each of those is just that times 10,000. If they're closed, they'd have no revenue, they'd have no variable costs, but they'd still have to pay £50,000 of fixed costs. So they would lose £50,000 if they closed, but they're only losing £30,000 by staying open. In the long run, obviously, you want to close it. It's no fun losing £30,000 a year, which is what they're doing. But in the short run, when you've got your fixed costs that have to be, or per month, or whatever it is, when you've got fixed costs that have to be paid, it makes sense to stay open until, say, the end of a lease or something like that, and then in the long run, you close when you can get rid of your fixed factor. Question 17 is an index calculation question. So question 17, a hypothetical economy, you've got to work out the index. And what you're given is you've got food, housing, leisure, transport and communications. You've got their weight, which shows what proportion of the basket or the consumer's basket these goods take. So that's the percentage of the basket that they take. That's their weight. And then you're given their price index. And all you're trying to do is to work out a weighted average of the price index. But what we can't do is add those 5 things up and divide by 5 because some of them are more important than others. So all we do is we multiply that by that, 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 and you divide by 1,000. If you do that, you get 101. This is the same principle as saying, suppose you had a party and you had 19-year-olds, 18-year-olds, and 17-year-olds, and you wanted to work out the average age. What we'd really need to know is how many people were there. And if there were 10 19-year-olds, 20 18-year-olds, and 5 17-year-olds, you just go, well, there are 10 at 19, 20 at 18, 5 at 17, and I'm going to divide the answer by 35. It's the same principle. Question 18 is, so this one. So question 8, I'll show it on here actually. Question 18, you're just told the government's budget position. And what we can see is that in every year, the government is borrowing. But for most years, it's borrowing less each year than the year before, except in 2015, particularly 2012, For 2012, where borrowing rises again. So the government's borrowing every year. Each year, the government is spending more than it's raising in the form of tax. Therefore, its total debt is going up. The total amount of borrowing the government has is higher each year than the year before in total. Even though the amount generally is falling per year, national debt is still rising. 19. One significant effect of a fall in the exchange rate of the pound Yeah. So this is in order to get this one right, you've got to be able to think. Yeah. So what we know is that we've gone from say £1 equals $2, to £1 equals $1.50. And you quickly realise that most of the answers are wrong. What we end up left with is a slightly weird one. Well, there's an improvement in terms of trade, which isn't the right answer because we haven't done it yet. But the other one is the right answer is C, which is that UK firms' overseas profits in terms of pounds increase. So let's suppose I made a profit, of $30 million in the US, and then I take that profit back to the UK. How many pounds do I get? If £1 equals $2, when the exchange rate is strong, that means that my profit is £15 million. If £1 equals $1.50, when I turn those dollars back into pounds, I'll get $20 million. Therefore, there is an increase in the profitability of overseas firms when turning those profits back into pounds. Now, question 20 is a classic price elasticity trap. It's the easiest question on the paper, but what you're told is they first tell you what happens to income, which is it goes from 500 to 540, and you're then told about what happens to demand, which it rises from 10 to 12. But what everybody does, especially when they're in a hurry, is they then work out the formula the wrong way up, because you're given the income first. But the formula is the percentage change in demand over the percentage change in income, and I would strongly recommend that you write out these formulae. The percentage change in demand is obviously 20%. The percentage change in income, if you do it, is 8%. They're both plus. Therefore, income elastic demand is plus 2.5. Okay, so that's the short answer section, and I'll move on to the. I'll do the. Sorry, that's the multiple choice section. I'll do the short answer section in a separate clip in a minute.